Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Hi, and welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. I'm your host, Jill Hart, and with me today is Crystal Adair Benning. Crystal is best known for not being known at all. A sequin secret weapon copywriter and ghostwriter, she helps people just like you land center stage while your clients feel like total rock stars working with you. With a background in live events, marketing, PR, and media, she teaches strategies backed by real-world proof and practice rather than just theory. Always keen to keep thinking outside the book and push the envelope, she is the word magician who loves to explore human connection and emotion before aiming straight at the heart of your very best client ever. Welcome to the show, Crystal. It's really great to have you here.
My pleasure. Who wrote that bio? That was so long. I mean,
rocks.
Somebody wrote a book bio. What happened there?
I love it. You would think that the person who wrote it was maybe a copywriter or something.
I mean, just maybe a little bit. It's great. I always laugh when people read my bios because they change almost on the daily. So if you have a bio that you've held for like more than 5 minutes, congratulations, you've held your bio longer than I have because I change them all the time. I think because I get bored of hearing about my own accolades. So I'm like, oh, today we're going to be sassy. Today we're going to talk about the dog, or today we're going to talk about travel, or today I'm going to throw some crazy adventure and book writing in. So I love that that was the bio you read. It was amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, just kind of happened that way. And while I was over there looking on your website, there was I got to a 404 page.
Oh.
And
that's like a travesty. Oh, I'm a copywriter. We shouldn't have those 404s.
It was totally my mistake. So I just put that out there. But
okay, cool.
it was kind of a blessing to get there because it was hilarious.
I genuinely believe that anytime you write anything, it's a chance to show your personality and to shine. And I think what you're talking about is like my 404 one comes up as like, oops, error. Gosh, you'd think a copywriter would be on this or something silly like that. There's a few of them.
It needs a crystal. It said it needs a crystal.
I mean, it does. Really.
I'm like, I'm all in the woo world. And then it just like, and then the double entendre hit me like a ton of bricks.
I happen to have the world's best name for working with wooey coaches because I mean, the only crystal you need is me. Somebody gave me this one. I've got a crystal for that, like for my water bottle. Like there's all kind of fun, beautiful double entendres and moments that we can do. So yeah, I think of copy is truly about having fun. And so my life, like my very first book that ever got published and that I wrote, I was 14 years old and I've been having fun with words long before that. And I swear I'll have fun with words until I die. I kind of want to write my own like death, like notice. Like I really want to write, like I should write it myself because it would be hilarious. And I think that that's a good exercise for me. So now you've given me an idea. And now I think I'm going to go write my like funeral notification just for funsies and put it into the file for my husband to be like, what the crap did this lady write? There'll probably be 500 before I kick it. But there you go.
Yeah.
Jill's like, where did this go already? It's
I
all good.
love it though. I love it. I'm over here thinking about when I had to write my mom's obituary, and
Right.
you know, I wrote about all the cool stuff that she did, and you know, what made her unique, and not the
I
normal.
love it.
She had, you know, 5 kids or 3 kids or whatever she had.
I
Um,
fully expected somebody should write that I never sat still. And I always wondered why there was an airplane that kids weren't allowed on. Like that needs to be in my obituary, because every single time I get on an airplane and there's a crying child, I'm like, why do airplanes for adults only, or adults with pets? Like I would take that airline too. Where does that exist? So these are the fun things my brain dreams up and goes like, we need to do. And I think I'm going to dive in here for a second, but I
yeah.
truly think that anybody that's got wisdom, a sense of humor, a personality, something about you that you love, opinions that you have, it's important to write that stuff down. No, like if you don't tell your story, somebody else will. That has been my rule from day one. If you don't tell your story, somebody else is going to tell it for you. And my job, oddly enough, as a ghostwriter, is to do just that. For people that don't want to write or can't write their own stories, I'm the one who gets to tell them. But good news, you work with me, so you get to control it a little bit. But I think more of us should tell our stories, because at the end of the day, if your obituary is just beloved by 5 people and your pet, I don't know. I want to know the cool things you did. I want to know like when you went scuba diving, or your favorite flavor of gelato, or what
Your pink
you,
ballet slippers that you kept in
all
your
of it.
drawer that your little girls went and loved,
Love
because
that.
you'd given up ballet at that point, but we loved your
Exactly.
shoes.
Exactly. All of that. I love all of that. So I think more of us deserve to tell our stories. So I think that's where everything that I do kind of started from, was a love of storytelling. And it's just kind of progressed from there. And now I specialize in working, oddly enough, I know in your realm, I work with coaches to truly tell their stories. And I write a form of, like most of my books are a form of catharsis, a form of healing, but it's also a form of sharing your story and connecting it to the work you do, so that people truly see your expertise, see your authority, but also get this like powerful, holy smokes, you changed my life out of a book. And that is always my end goal of what we produce and what we create. And it starts with you and it ends with a book that changes people's lives. And I love that. So that's kind of where the career started from. And every day I get like a mini masterclass from incredible humans on their wisdom. I feel like a walking library of random knowledge because of the variety of books that I am blessed to write and the incredible humans that I get to know. But each one of us has so much inside of us. If you're sitting here right now thinking, I don't have a book in me, I promise you, you do. Like, I promise you, you have something to say and something to go through. A lot of times we get caught up in the comparisonitis. Oh, my story's not good enough, or nobody wants to hear about that. Yes, yes, we do. Yes, we do. We are naturally curious as human beings. We love other people's stories. We love diving into like what makes them tick, what they went through, what they learned from it. And so I think if more of us found that confidence to write it and to talk about it, I think the world would be a better place. So coaches, you are doing the hard lifting of changing lives that way. I'm a coach. I just do it through books. So my modality for coaching is just through books, and that could be writing a book for you. It could be writing a book with you. It might just be, helping you edit your book or refine your storytelling. That's all it takes, the good stuff. And yeah, it's a powerful medium, and I love it.
And you take people to the bestseller list.
I've been known to do such things. Yes, yes, guilty as charged. So I have been blessed to have 4 New York Times bestsellers under my belt. My very first I wrote when I was 14. It published 2 weeks before I turned 16 and went to the bestseller list. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't even know what the New York Times bestseller list was at 15. As you know, we weren't that savvy back then. I'm a little bit older than I like to announce to the world. But I went bestseller with that book as a ghostwriter. And it's kind of a tragic tale turned like pain into purpose story, right? Because that first book I wrote for somebody, we had a verbal agreement. I knew nothing about contracts. I was 14. I got taken advantage of. And this person reneged on paying me and actually tried to pay me in dog food, like literal dog food. She wanted to pay me in Purina puppy chow. And in that moment, I was devastated and literally felt like I was a terrible business person. I was like, I didn't do something right. Yeah, but like I was like, oh, like I did like, oh, I messed this up. I'm never going to write again. And thankfully her publisher, which was one of the big five, took me under their wing, taught me everything I know, and gave me the opportunity to write many more New York Times bestsellers. And now I write, I write literally dozens of books a year with people. Not all of them go to the New York Times. That's a big step, and it's an expensive step if you want to do that. But many of them make the Amazon bestseller list, or they'll make the Washington Post bestseller list, or even their local, newspaper or magazine's bestseller list. New York Times is like the gold standard. Of course, everybody wants that. But the truth is there's more than one ways to be a bestseller. And I teach people how to do that. And I'm proud to say that every book I've been involved in has been a bestseller of one form or another.
And let's talk about the cost of becoming a bestseller, because people seem to think that it's just free, that you become a bestseller and you get on these lists and it doesn't cost you anything. You just have to be really good.
Negative. Good is only part of the equation. And what people need to realize now is that with the advent of AI and people being able to produce books faster and better than they have to a certain extent, there's so much competition now for those lists that it's actually made it much harder to get even noticed. So that's the first thing. Second thing that you need to know is that anything that's been written by AI is typically removed from bestseller lists. It diminishes the quality of it. We all see it. It's plagiarized. It learns from people like me who actually make their living writing.
Right.
AI literally learns from me. So my books have probably been reviewed by AI because anything that's public work now, it reviews. So it uses it to learn how I write, and then it mimics it for you. But what we now know, and what's been set precedent in both the US and Canada, is that anything written by AI cannot be considered copywritten. You cannot own the copyright for something AI wrote because you didn't write it. That means that I can go online, steal your book word for word, produce it, and put it back out into the world and still make money on it. So what's now happening is the bestseller lists are starting to get even more complicated because they're checking for plagiarism, they're checking for AI, they're doing all their background work. And there's so many books coming out that you have to stand out from the noise in the marketplace. And the way that we do that is still storytelling at its very best. If you have a topic that's trending, if you have a unique perspective, a specialty, an IP, something that's noticeable and is going to garnish attention, something that truly changes lives. And the first book off the top of my head was like Marie Kondo's The Magic Art of Tidying Up. When she released that, it was a simple process. Like literally the whole book boils down to get rid of anything that doesn't cause you joy. And everybody knows that now, right? But that book was so powerful because it was one message told through an entire book that basically, if your lifestyle and the stuff you're surrounding yourself doesn't bring you joy, get rid of it, do something different. And she leaned on that and still leans on that message. That is her marker. So most of us think like if we don't have a 15-step methodology and we don't have something to put out in the world, that we can't like sell it. But the truth is all you need is one brilliant idea that's going to change the world, and that's what you produce. How you get on the bestseller list, you have to stand out, which means marketing the heck out of your book. You can't just drop it on Amazon and be like, good, we're done here. It doesn't work like that. Often what it takes is both organic and paid traffic. You need to have ARC readers who are writing reviews for you. You can pay some of your ARC readers if you need to, but ideally you shouldn't be paying them. You need a launch team that's going to promote it on social media. A lot of people run entire launch campaigns where they're giving away copies of their books, they're selling copies of their books, they're encouraging multiple buys of their books. To become a New York Times bestseller, it's been estimated that the cost ranges between $1 and $10 million. in marketing and investment in a team of people that are going to take you forward. So no, the short answer is it's not free. The average self-published, first of all, self-published books rarely become New York Times bestsellers. It's possible, but it's super rare. So most of the time you need to go through a traditional publisher. So you're going to have money and time and energy spent getting a traditional publisher. Then you're going to spend time marketing, promoting, and doing your book. You're going to spend time doing book tours. You're going to spend time doing podcasts and media interviews. And a lot of people don't understand, but there's a time cost to that. There's a physical cost to missing out on your life for the time it's going to take you to promote your book to become a New York Times bestseller. Most people aren't ready for that.
And here's the other kicker part.
Yeah.
You're not making all that much money per book. You have to
No,
sell a hell of a lot of books.
Self-published books typically sell under 5,000 copies. We know this, like just looking at the numbers, we know a self-published book typically sells under 5,000 copies. A published book from a major publisher with them advertising behind it, the average for a big 5 publisher is still under 10,000 copies, guys. Like it's not a dramatic increase. I mean, if you're a Michael Crichton or a J.K. Rowling or a Colleen Hoover, you're selling millions of copies of books because you've built a following, and you don't have to do as much marketing. Literally, I think J.K. Rowling has a new book coming out. I want to say it's like next month. I could be wrong. But she has a new book coming out, and I recently was checking on Amazon and in a couple book retailers, and like her sales are already through the roof. Like she's going to have a New York Times bestseller again on pre-sales, but it's because everybody knows the Harry Potter brand and they're going to go buy it. Colleen Hoover, likewise, has a big movie out that's based on one of her books. There's a bunch of controversy, so her name's in the media all over the place. Whether you think that the controversy is good, bad, or indifferent, I promise you, Colleen Hoover is still going to sell 1 billion books based on the fact that her name is bloody well out there, and she has a movie, and Blake Lively's in it, and Ryan Reynolds is attached to it, and you know what I mean? Like she's still going to sell all these books. It's the marketing machine that makes a New York Times bestseller. It's not necessarily the book. I mean, there have been books on the New York Times bestseller list I've read where I've been like, freaking serious? Like this is what you like? Really? Okay. They get it right, they get it wrong, but it's the marketing machine that often drives what becomes a bestseller more so than the content. The content has to work in order to build the momentum, but the marketing machine, the marketing powerhouse is what actually makes a bestseller.
And so let's talk a little bit about using books as marketing tools in and of themselves, because
Absolutely.
I find that people may want to write a book, they want to be an author, but they don't really understand that there's power in writing a book. It doesn't have to become a bestseller. You just have to do it, and you can use it in other ways. So what are some of the other ways that you know of that?
Oh my gosh. Like some people write books because it's a legacy tool for them. They want to tell their story and they want people to know. I have a book on my desktop right now that I'm working with a client, and he went through an incredible story that was all over the news, but the news got it wrong, as it does, right? Like his story, the way that the news represented it was only one perspective, one piece of the puzzle. And when you actually read his story, it was like there's so much more color and understanding and depth to that story and meaning to that story. And he wanted to, quote unquote, set the record straight and tell his side of the story, right? Because it's years later, this went through court. It was a big kerfuffle. It was all over the news. It changed thousands of lives, literally. And now he wants his story told because he wants to get it off of his chest and have his side public and acknowledged, right? He's ready for that. So that's one reason you write a book. Some people write a book purely as a marketing tool. If you're a coach and you have, now my rule for coaches is the 3 rule, meaning 3 years of teaching, doing the thing before you write the book about it, because I need you to prove it works. You can't just sit in your office one day and be like, I have an idea for this, like, shock collar therapy. and then we never test it and we put it out into the world. That it's not safe, it's not reasonable, it's not respectable. We're not going to do that. So 3 years of creating a system, a tool, an ideology, whatever, teaching it, utilizing it, so you have case studies to back up that it works, then let's write a book. So 3 years is kind of the minimum kind of benchmark. And we use your book as a marketing tool because you might not sell the book. You might turn it into an ebook and give it away on your website. You might print copies and give copies to your clients who are working with you. It might be a part of a workbook that's included as part of a program or a coaching system that you offer. So that's a great way to use a marketing tool. Sometimes you do it as a loss leader. So for example, I used to work in events. I had a book that was a marketing tool that we paid to like have copies in our office to give to clients, because we knew that them reading the book would help them understand better what we did, who we were, and why we did what we did. Right. So it was a marketing tool. That's another great reason. Other people might write a book purely because they need to heal or help themselves better understand what they've been through. Writing a book is an incredibly cathartic process. It's catharsis on the paper, right? Like and anybody who's ever written a book, and Jill, I know you've written a book, you know, the process of telling your own story is catharsis. You know, you have to relive it. You have to reassess it. You have to find I call it the ribbon. Like, how do we tie the bow? What was the lesson? What are we bringing forward? And so a lot of people actually write books that never want to press play on them. They never want to publish it. They just need to write it so they can process and move through what they had so that they can move on to the next thing. So there's a billion different reasons to write a book. And I mean, if there was 10 people in this room, every single one of them would say some version of those things. But we all have our own reasons for writing. I also love when people are like, I just want to become an expert and authority because I want to speak on stages and I want access to stages. I want to be seen as an expert in my field. Great. Technically, it's a marketing tool, but I understand that your goal is to kind of spotlight your wisdom or IP. Some people want it as copyright as a way to protect their business or their modality or methodology, to like know that it was theirs first, right? Oftentimes I'm guilty of this too. When I write things, sometimes I'm like, I'm going to assign copyright to this because if anybody else uses it, I'm going to be so mad. Like, I came up with the name, I came up with the system, it's mine. So sometimes we write just to kind of protect ourselves, to protect our business and our wisdom. So yeah, there's many reasons that you would write a book, and not all of them are about becoming a bestseller. I feel like a bestseller status is kind of, it's like an afterthought. There's some people who start with, I want to have a bestseller, but for most of us, it's I want to write this book because of X. And if Y, being bestseller status, happens, I'm really excited.
So that kind of brings us around to the idea of anthologies.
Oh.
In the world that you and I both swim in.
Yep.
To mix my metaphors for you.
Like it. Good.
We get inundated with people trying to get us to join these anthologies and pay large sums of money and to write a chapter, maybe if you're lucky 5,000 words, but often not even that many, for $1,500 or $2,000, and you'll get the bestseller status. And it's like they just want to stamp you with this, okay, you're a bestseller, so now that gives you some authority, but it really doesn't, because
100%.
all you've done is cheapen it, because you're part of this. You've diluted your message, for one thing, because you're part of something else that somebody else is driving. They have an agenda.
Oh, listen, I have 1,000 of opinions about joining these anthologies and archives. Here's the short version of it. Don't do it. You cheapen your brand. You are never going to get out of it what you put into it. Yes, you're going to have bestseller status, so you're going to be able to say best-selling author. But the truth is, when the hell did you last go into a store and buy an anthology that you didn't know somebody who had written in it? The reason they become bestsellers, guys, is purely marketing. You buy in, you pay $2,000 or whatever it is to be a part of it. then they purchase, sometimes they purchase copies and give it to you as part of your, money up front. Most of the time you're committing to also buying copies of said book. That's how they're getting their numbers up so that they can get bestseller status. And the only time, like the only bestseller status I've ever seen an anthology truly take, and I could be wrong here, but I've never seen it go beyond an Amazon bestseller. I can do that as a solo writer and be more proud of and have more ownership of that work than writing for somebody else. Anthologies are, they have the marketing power because they have manpower behind it. The reason you want 20 authors in your anthologies because now 20 people are talking about your book. It's like crowdfunding your bestseller status. So fine.
And it's really all about the bestseller status. It's not really about giving a good message in the book.
No. And I find a lot of them aren't cohesive. They might start out with like a theme. I have a great example where somebody I write for all the time had asked me to write in their anthology. Last year, I didn't really want to, but they were just a couple authors short and they really wanted me to help out. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll write a piece for your magazine, or for your, I called it a magazine. It's not, it's an anthology. But when I wrote the article,
I like a magazine.
It feels like a magazine to me. But when I wrote the article, and like it's beautiful and they full color printed it and the whole nine, it's a beautiful article, but based on the theme they had given me, I did something completely different than everybody else in the magazine or anthology, right? And so what ends up happening is it feels weird and slightly off because my topic choice was so different from, like, everybody else went for their one like crazy, like the bottom of the barrel story, right? Because that's what we tend to do when we write in anthologies. We go for the bottom of the barrel story. The problem for me is I'm not writing my bottom of the barrel story in an anthology where, like, how many people are going to read it? The people who like bought into the book. Instead, I'm going to tell my bottom of the barrel story. If I'm going to tell my bottom of the barrel story, I'm going to write it in my own damn book. I'm saving that masterpiece for my own work that's on me, that is going to give me all the credit, me all the funding, me all the like best-selling status. I'm not giving that up to somebody else. And so many authors who write in these anthologies give up their best piece of work, their best story, to somebody else. And to me, that's just awful. It
never gets shared.
It never gets shared. I mean, I have a copy of that particular anthology on my desk right now. I have never read it beyond opening it up to see my own story and closing it. I couldn't even tell you who else is in that book. I don't have a clue. So
I think the idea is good, but it's really a money-making mechanism for whoever is putting it together.
Listen, it's not my jam. The people it works really well for, however, are people who are new in the industry. They haven't spent 3 years. They haven't developed their IP. They don't have a full book within them, but they're looking to generate some media, some hype, some interest around themselves. They're needing something to cachet themselves for a minute. Those people are fine. Cool. It's perfect for you. Do it. I get it. However, to me, anybody who's been in the industry longer than 3 years and has some wisdom and some IP to share with the world, don't do the anthology. Write your damn book. Tell me your story. Don't hide behind 19 other authors hidden in the middle of chapter 6. Don't do that to yourself. This isn't chicken soup for the goddamn soul. This is like me standing up as a business owner and being like, I have wisdom to share, and this is the hill I'm willing to die on. And it's not a 2-page summary of my life.
Yeah.
And I know that that's going to make people upset. Sorry to anybody who's been in an anthology. There's a time and a place. It's just not my deal, because I think most of us have more wisdom, more guidance, more storytelling inside of us than a 2-pager or a 4-page inside of an anthology is going to allow. And so just right now.
My bigger point is that just becoming an Amazon bestseller, it's a game, and you don't have to have that label. You
You
can
don't
write a
have
book
to.
for a lot of different reasons. It's
100%.
just because you have that label doesn't mean anything in
Totally.
terms of who you are. It doesn't make you a better coach or a worse coach. It doesn't have any meaning beyond it's like a
Best-selling
status
writer,
symbol for you.
best-selling writer is a status symbol. Depending, again, everything is dependent upon where you exist in the world and what you want to do with it. So
Yeah.
best-selling author can be a caveat of helping you get more stages or being seen differently in your field if being a celebrated author is like a big important thing. You always have to look at the bigger picture to determine, do I need the accolade or do I just need the damn book? Like, I've written plenty of books that I have self-published, printed my damn self to use, never hit Amazon. They're not bestsellers. They're just shit that I use because I need it. I need it in my business. There's something I want to teach somebody or use. So I've made the book myself, right?
Yeah.
And I don't need bestseller status on it. I just need the book. That said, I also don't mind bestseller status. And if people want to use it, that's fine. But now the only differential is when somebody can say they're a New York Times bestseller, or they're a Washington Times bestseller, or they're an LA Times bestseller, or whatever. So it's starting to get to the point where best-selling author doesn't mean much, except for the caveat of put where before it. If your answer is just Amazon, cool, I'm excited for you. It's not that hard to become an Amazon bestseller, for the record. Like, it's really not. Every book I've ever written has been an Amazon bestseller technically. So, I mean, yay me, I'm 100% on that one. But of the hundreds of books or that I've had a chance to write or be part of, 4 since I was 15 have gone New York Times bestseller. I'm not 15 anymore. I'm in my 40s, for the record. So like it takes a lot of work, a lot of effort to become a New York Times bestseller. Don't just expect, and a lot of people go in with the like, especially when they hire me, they'll be like, I want a New York Times bestseller. And I'm like, cool, how much you got to put into marketing? Because you're going to pay me a pretty penny for writing it, and then you're going to pay a pretty penny for marketing it to get it to New York Times bestseller status. And it's not a short process. So, you know, the world moves pretty quick these days. We want to print and publish our IP so that somebody else doesn't do it first. Publishing is still kind of in the dark ages. It takes 1.5 to 3 years to publish a book through a traditional publisher. No, I'm not talking about niche publishers or vanity publishers and stuff like that. I'm talking about the big 5 traditional publishers. Still take between 18 months and 3 years typically to publish, which means that your IP is just sitting there for 3 years for somebody else to swoop in underneath you and, you know, publish it first. Is that a weird risk you're willing to take? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Depends on a lot of factors.
And then it gets back to, you know, cost.
Totally.
You're
Also,
not going,
like,
it's not, becoming a bestseller
yeah,
is an advertising expense. It is not a money-making venture. Unless you are J.K. Rowling and they're giving you great advances. And they can know, I mean, they do the numbers. They know how much they're going to make off of her next book, and they can give her an advance because they know what the royalties.
Okay, but let's talk about advances, because there's a misnomer with advances too. People assume that an advance is you being paid for your book. It absolutely is not.
It's not.
An advance is literally what it sounds like, and it's an advance on how many books they suspect you're going to sell and the amount of commission that you're going to make on those sales. Should your book not reach that number, they lose. If your book goes over that number, they win, but you only are going to take commission on your books beyond that advance. So if you get $1 million advance and you're J.K. Rowling and you can sell $10 million worth of books and get royalties for it on 10 million bucks, you're going to win because you got your advance, plus you're going to get money on royalties. If you're not, though, if you're the average author, and guys, like, everybody always assumes like it's $1 million book deal or it's $100,000 book deal. Nope. The average book deal right now is somewhere between 20 and 60,000. The average book deal only is 20 to 60,000. And the expectation of that advance is that you're going to use it to market your book, because your traditional publishers are helping, but they're not paying for all of it. You're still expected to reinvest in marketing that book so that it gets out there and more books get sold. How do you get another book contract? You sell more books, is the short answer. So,
yeah, and that means paying to fly around the world and
correct.
promote it and go to bookstores and do
Yeah.
book signings and do television appearances and figure out how to get on those
Listen,
television appearances.
there is a very clear reason why I'm a ghostwriter, and that is that A, I don't want the cost of marketing a book and trying to become a New York Times bestseller on my own. B, I have no intention of jumping on Oprah's couch. I couldn't care less. That is not my deal. And I like my time to myself. So when I ghostwrite, you as the author get to go on the book tour and spend your money to go on the book tour. I get to be on the beach in the Maldives with my commission check from writing your book in the first place. And sometimes I'm still, ghostwriters, dependent upon the way your contract is signed, I often make royalties anyway. So you out there promoting the book also makes me money. So please have at it. Enjoy your book tour. I will continue to make money in the background. But for me, I was always happier writing than promoting. Writing the book was like, that is my joy. That is my gift. That is like my masterclass in everything that you know and that I get to learn. I love that stuff. What I didn't love was the marketing machine of having to be an author and at that, a best-selling author. So again, there's a million reasons to write a book. Not everybody wants to be a best-selling author, but if you do, I want you to understand the commitment that you're making to promoting this book, because really you're going to turn into a marketing machine for anywhere between 2 to 5 years. And you're going to have to commit to traveling the world and constantly running events and talking about your book and doing social media and running email lists and speaking on stages and doing all of this stuff. Whereas I get to write your book and then I'm done. I just collect my royalty check, I collect my payment check, and I move on with my life and do the next thing. And I'm okay with that.
The next bestseller.
Right, the next bestseller. That's literally my gig, and I love it. But that's not to say there's anything wrong with wanting to be a bestseller. I just wish more of us were so open about the idea of like, if you want to do this, there's a cost associated with it. And there's nothing wrong with being an Amazon bestseller, guys, at all. If you just want to be bestseller status, just get your Amazon bestseller. You're a bestselling author. Congrats. If you want to create a book that has a New York Times buzz or a Washington Post or an LA Times or a Times on Sunday or whatever, if you want that kind of accolade, just know what it's going to take. That's all.
Yeah. And you have a guide for people, 7 steps to catapult your book to bestseller status.
Yeah. I'm going to give it away for free. I mean, it's going to give you the honest to goodness truth. Some of it we talked about today that goes into it a little bit more in depth in the PDF. But I'm going to just tell you straight from, I was going to say the horse's mouth, but that's rude to me. Straight from the copywriter and the ghostwriter's mouth, I'm going to tell you what it actually takes behind the scenes. And the truth is it takes a lot more than people actually think. If it was that easy to do, we'd all have a New York Times bestseller. There's a reason why I highlight my New York Times bestsellers in my bios, because it's not common. It's not easy. It's something that takes a lot of work. And it's funny to me because like I get to claim New York Times bestselling ghostwriter because I am, but I also didn't have to do the book tour. Yay me. I got my New York Times, but I didn't have to do the book tour. I didn't have to be like pumping it out for 5 years. I literally wrote the book and I got to walk away. And for me, that's that's the amazing part and the best part of my world.
And there are people that they need, I'm going to bring up politicians for a moment. Mm-hmm. They need the book and they need to have it written. Mm-hmm. They want to take advantage of a reason to get in front of a whole bunch of people.
Totally.
And that's why they're writing it. And that's why it needs to be a bestseller. And
totally.
And we're talking about nonfiction here. You know, fiction is a whole different can of worms.
Oh, fiction. I mean, a lot of the same rules apply, but fiction's very different. But I think that I've always had this belief that everybody has a story, but not everybody should tell it. First of all, there are some people that should not write a book. If you are in the thick of it, don't write a book. You are writing from the scar. You're writing from the wound, not the scar. Don't write from the wound. All you're going to do is vicariously traumatize people. Please do not do that. Right. Please, like, especially as coaches, like, you know better. Don't do that. You can write it for yourself, like journal it out so you don't forget shit. But when you go to actually write the book, I will be the first person who's like, that needs a rewrite. You can't say that. There are other people who should not write a book, like people who just, their tone of voice or their ability to tell a story is not great. Don't write a book. I'm not saying don't have a book. I'm saying don't write it your damn self, or hire a book coach or hire a ghostwriter. You can still tell your story, but we need to know our limits. I, for example, am freaking terrible with accounting. My books would be a nightmare if I tried to do them for my damn self. That's why I have an incredible bookkeeper and an accountant to keep me on task, right? Know what you're capable of and hire for the stuff that you can't. There's nothing saying you can't have a book just because you're not a great writer or you don't have time to write or whatever. You can, you just have to hire. And it's not a cheat to hire, because I promise you're going to do work with me. You don't just show up in my office and be like, Crystal, today we're going to write a book about X and leave me to it. And I magically come up with a book at the end of it. That is not the process. It's still all your content. The trick is you're going to teach it to me, and then I'm going to transmute it out into the world in a way that makes sense to your reader, not just to you. That's the trick. So if you're the person who has an incredible brilliance, you just don't have the time to write or the desire to write or the skill to write, hire. You can still have a book.
And how can people hire you? Or at least have a conversation with you about hiring you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website right now is wordmagiccopywriting.com. It's due to change shortly to write, WRITE, wordmagic.com. So if this comes out later, it's Write Word Magic. If not, it's Word Magic Copywriting. Try them both. And you can go on there. You can book a call with me. It's completely free to talk about your book. And I will give you my unfettered, unfiltered opinion of like, write this, don't write this. You need a book coach. You need a ghostwriter. You need nothing. Go write it your damn self. You're good. But I am known for one thing in the industry, which is literally giving you my opinion freely and telling you what should and should not be written and how I would go about writing it. And so I'm happy to do that for people. And if you want to work with me, if you want to hire me, ghostwriting has a wait list. Book coaching usually can come in fairly quickly, right? It's oftentimes even same week. But ghostwriting, there is a bit of a wait list. So it depends on the book and what you're writing and how long we need to prep it. But most people, it's 6 months out, at least 6 months to a year.
So take the course and then have her ghostwrite it for you.
100%. Figure it out.
Amazing.
Yeah. There's more than one way to write a book. The only way I'm going to recommend you don't write a book is through AI. And that's purely because you will not own it. And you're just going to train it to know everything that you know so that somebody else can use it in their book. Don't do that.
Yeah, there's a time and a place for AI.
There is a time and a place for AI. Yeah.
Super enlightening, Crystal. And I really appreciate you coming on and just sharing your unvarnished opinions about all the things.
It is completely unvarnished. Like I said, I love what I do. And I think that coaches truly, like, you guys are the Mavericks. You guys change the world with the stuff that you do. I am always in awe when my coaches come to me and teach me incredible things that, like, you guys change my life every time you come in to teach me what I need to know to write your books. I'm always in awe and like complete and utter respect for what you do. And the world needs more of you. And the way that we can get you out into the world isn't by one-on-one coaching. It's by creating something that's going to be able to spread faster and wider than we can.
Really why I do this podcast.
I love it.
For the same reason.
I love it.
So thank you so much for joining me. What's the one thing that you hope the audience takes away from this conversation today?
I mean, the smart ass in me was like, please don't write in an anthology. But in truth, in truth, it's that what I really want you to do is understand that you have an incredible power and story inside of you, and you have the ability to tell it. So if you ever get the chance, if you even have an inkling inside of you that you want to share your story or your wisdom, do it. Don't wait. It is the number one, like, most regretted decision when they've interviewed people who are dying. The biggest regret is that they didn't tell their story and they didn't write it themselves. And so honestly, write your story. What you do with it next, that's a marketing decision, but write your story.
Thank you so much for joining me.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at the You World Order, or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.